Alright, here we are with another sharpening system. This is the KME Precision Knife Sharpening System. This one has probably had a lot more internet fame in the last few years compared to some of the others. And I decided that I wanted to pick one up and kind of play around with it a little bit. It comes in this plastic case, very reminiscent of a handgun or firearm case. And, well, you get, hey, it's color instruction manual. That's neat. You get the little sharpening clamp sort of thing with pistol grip. You get a steel pole, which might not actually come in the box, but that's perfectly fine. You get basically one of these mounting things for the stones. You get a nut. And you get this nice bar here. Let's see, there's probably one piece that I'm missing that came with my particular set. There we are. Something that I should have thought of beforehand. Mine actually came with the stand, which, in my opinion, is almost crucial to be able to use this thing comfortably. That's what this bar kind of comes into. It's, nothing super simple or nothing super extravagant. It's just literally a piece of wood with a little thing there with some feet on it. So, all right, let's get the case out of the way, and I'll show you around this guy a little bit. This guy is fairly similar to the Apex Edge Pro that I had previously taken a look at. It's a little bit different, and that's perfectly fine. And where is my little open nail knife that I had? Ah, here we are. This guy just works as a nice little sample knife to be able to show kind of what's going on here. Okay, so this super long rod sort of thing here, and it's just going to screw into the edge of the little wood guy right here. Goes in quite a ways, which I'm perfectly happy with. Makes it nice and sturdy. On the underside, the stones are mounted relatively the same as KME system did. Now, the system that I personally picked up came with diamond stones, and they came in 140 to 300 to 600 to 1500. And that does a pretty darn good job overall if you're maintaining knife edges. A lot of times when I get a new knife, I'll test it out a little bit and I want to actually reprofile it. And that obviously takes a lot more time. I ended up picking up the Beast, which is a 50 grit diamond stone. And this thing really does feel rough. And I'm not sure if it's just the knives in particular that I was trying to reprofile, but it really just didn't seem to cut much at all. It was kind of disconcerting. And these weren't like super steel things. Like one of them was an Artisan Shark in D2. And let's see, another one was I think the Harns Assassin in 14C28N. And it just really wasn't doing it for me. So I'm not sure necessarily what's going on there. I mean, this obviously does have a lot of grit on it, and it obviously is diamond, and it wasn't cheap, but I really wanted to give it a shot. That's also why I picked up a little bit later on the whole lapping set, because it doesn't actually come, my particular set didn't come with any to begin with there. And those are kind of neat. It's essentially, you get a a sodium lime impregnated piece of glass that's very straight, and you have these kind of press-on adhesive strip sort of things, and these just basically give you 5 strips in a set. And now that I've purchased them, I realize that is really expensive. For one, these things are pretty fragile. Unless you're very comfortable with the edge that you have already and whatnot, you really don't want to move back and forth on it. You only want to move it in one direction. You got to treat it like a strop, because otherwise you're just going to cut right through it, and then that really ruins the whole appeal of that. But it does do a really nice job of putting a mirror polish edge on there if you really like the shiny shinies. So, yeah, it's kind of up to you on that. So, yeah, I will set this aside, as well as the beast. I do like that it's purple, though. Hey, what can I say? All right. So, one of the first things that I've done, this one actually has actual markings on it rather than the individual little colored bands, but they're all relative, just like the other thing, the Apex Edge Pro. And something that a lot of people have done, myself included, is I've actually reversed the way that this ends up sitting, because this does a really good job at getting down to a certain angle, but when it's pointing up, I think basically the best angle that you're actually going to get on it is probably somewhere between 18 and 20, maybe 22 or something like that, which is just a little too deep for kind of what I want out of it. So we flip it upside down so this eye is below, and then obviously these numbers don't really mean all that much, so you do need some sort of angle determining thing. I mostly use my phone, but you can also use an angle cube if you have such a thing. So yeah, what we have is a little clamp sort of thing. You'll want to loosen this a little bit here, and then from the back you can actually push this once it's actually loosened a bit, and the jaws should open. Mine stick a little bit. They have since day one, just due to the rubber inside the jaws there, which I actually really appreciate. But what you do is you basically want to clamp that on there. Now it's got a couple of lines on each side there to kind of give you a little bit of an idea of where you're clamping, so you can kind of keep that consistent. But yeah, you will tighten that little duder down, and then it should be rather secure in there. And then I actually like to put it on the stand because, hey, I have one. And we'll go ahead and grab a stone. I don't want to put the beast on there because, well, this knife already has a nice edge on it. So, yeah, just basically slap that there on the back, and then this part is tightened up by the little black plastic screw thing there. Kind of gets them all in there nice and tight. And then this little plastic eye thing here, you will go ahead and set that thing through. At this point, you can lay it down on the blade, and either if you're looking to resharpen back to the bevel that's already on there, you can take a Sharpie, put it on the edge, and then take a single pass really quick, and then see where the Sharpie is and isn't. If it's only missing from the very top, but not really, really close to the edge, then it's a little bit too shallow. And kind of the other way, if it's only taking it off from the very, very edge, but the shoulder still has some black on there, then you're going to want to lower the angle a little bit. And yeah, you basically will grab it by the wood handle, which I don't think for my larger hands is the most comfortable, because it's very, very neutral. There's no like finger grooves or anything like that. and it doesn't have that nice large Delrin ball that the Apex Edge Pro did. But yeah, and you'll basically go along the whole thing. You can either do them in strokes, or you can do the sawing motion that a lot of folks do. What is nice about this thing is once you're done with a side, it will flip over and lock back in place. That's still perpendicular to that same plane. So it's very consistent from side to side, which is quite nice. And unless you are putting way too much force on the blade, it doesn't accidentally dislodge or anything at all when you're sharpening on it. It works out pretty darn well. Like I said, what I was ending up with a problem with was trying to reprofile knives with it, and even this the Beast, it really just wasn't cutting into the steel the way that I really wanted to. Part of that is me being impatient, but there's also, you know, some other people who are like, it should only take you like 15 or 20 minutes. I'm like, I'm not even raising a burr on the other side after that long. So there was something just crazy that just wasn't clicking with it. The other thing that I've noticed that ends up driving me crazy with this thing is you have to be very, very careful with where the stone is. Because you are sharpening along here, and this is kind of a small area of the stone, you can slip off of it on the end here. And when you do, essentially the edge of the blade drags across the blade and just scratches up like this whole area right behind the shoulder. So you have to be very, very careful with it, which is why I would suggest something like an open L for you to get your feet wet with it and make sure that you understand the exact throw that you have on both sides, so that you don't do that with you know, a more expensive knife like I've done on a couple. So it does have a couple of downsides there. The other one, which is just me being weird with the wanting the lower angles, is where that clamp is. Depending on the angle that you're trying to get to, you can actually get it too low, and you're not actually hitting the blade. You're actually just grinding on the clamp. This happens mostly when you're trying to sharpen at 17 or 15 degree angles that I like to do with a lot of my more impressive steels. You know, M390, S90V, that sort of stuff, where I do want a 15 degree angle on it. And because of the way that this clamp is designed, that's really not incredibly easily possible all the time. It does help to bring the blade forward, sometimes to this first line. Sometimes you have to go even further out. But that does get into a little bit of instability sort of things, where the knife angle can change depending on where you're putting pressure, depending on the side. And then that can throw your angle off as well. So there you go. There's kind of the KME. I will loosen that, kind of pull the trigger to release the blade. And yeah, I do really like these stones overall. They seem to be pretty darn high quality, and you know, they're not too super thick, which is great. From time to time, I do use, if I need something super, super thin, I'll use a different manual sharpener for, yeah, you've seen me pull this guy out a few times. This little work sharp guy that was, I don't know, maybe $20 or something like that, with the magnetic ones, with the two different grits. And this thing is one of my favorites for sharpening scissors, because it's so thin in there. I can get much closer back to where the jaws meet to sharpen way back there. Whereas you're trying to shove something like this in there, then you can't quite get back nearly as far, and you're having the other side of the blade hit up there and kind of ruining what was left of that edge there. So yeah, but these stones do have a lot of other good purposes. I do like to do something like smoothing out the spines of blades if they're super crisp, and I don't want them to be super crisp for fire rod striking or something like that. Then I can go from the 300 to the 1500 grit and kind of radius those over and make them super nice and comfortable. But yeah, there you go. There's the KME. Technically, you can and should be able to fully operate this thing in your hand, and that's the way that it mostly comes as. And I do have to say, it's not the most ideal kind of situation. You really do want a stand of some sort with it. And these stands aren't very expensive, but as far as I understand, they don't come in most of the kits, that you have to purchase them separately. And because of that, it also doesn't fit in the whole gun case. So that's kind of a little bit of a drawback, that you can't keep everything all together. But it's a pretty decent sharpening system. It works really well for a lot of folks. I've just had some issues with it that I really haven't been able to fully adjust to. So it's another one, like the Edge Pro Apex, that I mostly just keep packed up. And there's a couple of knives out there that I still have sharpened up to super nice mirror polished edges with it. But it's mostly something like my SE Avispa and SK5 carbon steel, or something that's relatively easy to sharpen with it, because I just didn't have luck with harder steels on there. So there you go. There's my thoughts on the KME sharpening system, and kind of the downsides that I've personally experienced with it, that kind of relegate it to, it's neat, but I don't need it all the time. So, as always, appreciate y'all for watching, and if I'm obviously being stupid with anything like this, feel free to call me out. I know this works for a lot of folks, and I might be in the minority on not really enjoying it all that much. But yeah, just let me know your thoughts and everything. And as always, I hope you have yourself a wonderful rest of your day, yo.